So I'm JD. I'm an alcoholic, addict, spiritual person in recovery from addiction. And so I have this wonderful opportunity to go through the big book together as a group, as I've been taken through it, as I've done the steps. And with that in mind, to have everybody realize that the way it was taught to me and the way that I was taught, the original intention of Bill and the original originators of the big book was this was a guidebook to a spiritual experience. And without that spiritual experience, we would be trapped in our addiction. So I'd like to start tonight, not at the beginning of the big book, but in the second appendix, which was not in the first edition of the big book. It was added in later printings and later editions, because there were a lot of people who read the original big book, and they thought that they had to have the spiritual experience that Bill had, the white light, the overwhelming sense of awareness, 20 minutes, and you know, you're one with the infinite. And for most people across all religions and spiritualities, it doesn't generally happen like that. It takes a long, slow progression as we change the way we exist, the way we think, the way we act, and the way we react. And the 12 steps are a path to clearing away the wreckage of our path, as it says, to wiping the slate clean, and to opening ourselves to that spiritual experience. That we not just change the fact that we're not drinking, we have an experience where we change who we are. And the idea is that we get rid of the false self. So we come into the meetings and we say, hi, my name is JD and I'm an alcoholic. But an alcoholic doesn't define me. I have to remember who I am. But we also remember that in the 12 steps, alcoholic is only mentioned in the first step and the last step. And in the book it says numerous times, recovered. We have recovered. So at a point after we have the spiritual awakening, the spiritual experience, then we are recovered. So we're not in recovery. We have recovered. But it takes a lot of work. And what we have recovered is our true self. We have lost the false self, the one that had to reach outside of themselves to get something outside of themselves when we find that true experience. So if you can open up to Appendix 2, Spiritual Experience, and we're going to go through it with that in mind, with that this was written after over 100 other members have had a spiritual experience, have sobered up, have found a new way of being, and lost the false self. The terms spiritual experience and spiritual awakening are used many times in this book, which, upon careful reading, shows that the personality change sufficient to bring about recovery from alcoholism has manifested itself among us in many different forms. Yes, it is true that in our first printing gave readers the impression that these personality changes or religious experience must be in the nature of sudden and spectacular upheavals. Happily for everyone, this conclusion is erroneous. In the first few chapters, a number of sudden revolutionary changes are described. Though it was not our intention to create such an impression, many alcoholics have nonetheless concluded that in order to recover, they must acquire an immediate and overwhelming God consciousness, followed at once by a vast change in feeling and outlook. Among our rapidly growing membership of thousands of alcoholics, such transformations, though frequent, are by no means the rule. Most of our experiences are what psychologist William James calls the educational variety, because they develop slowly over a period of time. Quite often, friends of the newcomer are aware of the difference long before he is himself. He finally realizes that he has undergone a profound alteration in his reaction to life, that such a change could hardly have been brought about by himself alone. What often takes place in a few months could seldom have been accomplished by years of self-discipline. With few exceptions, our members find that they have tapped an unsuspected inner resource, which they presently identify with their own conception of a power greater than themselves. Most of us think this awareness of a power greater than ourselves is the essence of spiritual experience. Our more religious members call it God consciousness. Most emphatically, we wish to say that any alcoholic capable of honestly facing his problems in the light of our experience can recover, provided he does not close his mind to all spiritual concepts. He can only be defeated by an attitude of intolerance or belligerent denial. We find that no one need have difficulty with the spirituality of the program. Willingness, honesty, and open mindfulness are essentials of recovery, but these are indispensable. There is a principle which a bar against all information, which proof against all arguments, and which cannot fail to keep a man in everlasting ignorance. That principle is contempt prior to investigation. Herbert Spencer. So why I like to start with this, why this appendix is so important to me in my experience, is that it is that chalkboard eraser. Let's wipe everything clear from our past with our religious beliefs, with our upbringing, and mainly with all the prejudices we have. I think more now so than ever, and I certainly encounter it with a lot of people that I come into contact with who don't like AA, who don't like the 12-step program, is that they have a problem with God. Now, I believe that they have a problem, much like I did, they have a problem of the God of their previous understanding. And that previous understanding probably comes from what they were told, what was put upon them, what was put upon me. You're dragged to whatever religion your family grew up in. And we hear other people's beliefs that we're supposed to believe. And how few people study spirituality and then work on a program that you discover the higher power. You don't, think it. You find it. It is discovered. And that is this process that takes however long it takes to find that higher power. We'll get more into this as we go through the steps, and of course, especially 2 and 3. We don't have to know right now, And I had a quote. I'll find it. We don't have to know right now in the what the God is. Here's the quote. A God defined is a God confined. Because whatever the great creator is, whatever concept of you, if you already have one, fantastic. And I hope that this process can expand your heart to have that belief grow even more. But I do find that most people are doing this work because they lack a certain depth of spirituality that they seek. So as you go through this work, really keep an open mind. And that is so much what this is saying. We'll go in much more when we get onto the chapter We Agnostics down the line. But now is the time to really open oneself up to the possibility, and just believing that you can believe. You don't even have to believe yet, but believe that you can believe. Believe that other people have had spiritual experiences and that this has worked for thousands and thousands of people, and that a spiritual experience isn't a mind-blowing one moment, but it is a change of who you are and how you are. And that's what I have come, and what to me the most profound thing is the way I react to everything, and the amount my love and compassion for all has grown and continues to grow. And that is the possibility with doing this work, and it is work, and but more than a self-help program, as it's been referred to sometimes. It's about changing who you are, and as I like to say, it's actually finding your true self that you've lost along the way. So we'll open it up for sharing in the meetings to come. We might spend a little more time reading along, so please get a big book and have a big book, whether it's a printout or something that you can make notes on your electronic devices, and get ready, and let's open up the sharing and see what people want to reflect on their experiences thus far with the big book, and if you have any prejudices that you are coming up with against already, that you want to talk about, that you want to think about, that you want to do some work on. So the floor is open.